Hi everyone, and today I'm going to be doing a video on coping with Tourette's at Christmas, because quite a lot of us notice that our symptoms can get worse over the Christmas period for a variety of reasons, but that can make things a little bit stressful. Even though Christmas is a lovely time, our Tourette's can get in the way of some things. So I'm going to be discussing that in this video. So Christmas when I was younger was an interesting time because I had severe Tourette OCD, and trying to decorate with that was very difficult because part of my Tourette OCD was straightening things because I felt the out-of-body sensations around them, and it was like I couldn't win because if it was too straight it was too perfect, but if it was wonky then it put me in a lot of distress. So I would spend hours trying to pet things in a specific place, and that with Christmas decorations wasn't very good. And I'd also scream if things were moved because I had to have them in a certain place. And with decorating, I remember one year, it was Christmas Eve, we hadn't even finished decorating. By Christmas morning, still hadn't. So it was a difficult thing, but I wanted to decorate. I would always try because that's the normal thing to do, but unfortunately my Tourette OCD got in the way of that. And I had not really any usable hours, so I would forget to write my Christmas list and stuff. I think the latest I left it was actually Christmas Eve, which was pretty pointless at that time. But yes, and I found that excitement worsened my symptoms. That's why we did have to sometimes play it down and sort of say, oh, there's nothing to get excited about, we're not doing anything special or whatever. And that sounds really disappointing, but it's the only thing we could do, of course, because it was the best thing at the time, even though it was disappointing because I physically couldn't get excited. If I got overexcited, my Tourette's would just ramp up horrifically and I wouldn't be able to do anything at all. So that's how we try to manage that, because my tics and rituals have also always got worse with excitement. Also, at Christmas, a lot of people sort of change their diets. For example, we used to have a lot of cheese and chocolate and stuff, but of course we didn't know this at the time, but dairy is actually my biggest tic trigger. And I think the change in diet could have also been a factor. So sometimes if tics might get worse around the Christmas period, if it's not just excitement, then you can look into other things and find that it might be certain dietary triggers, and that could be useful in the long term as well, because then you can eliminate them where necessary. Also, with decorating, some people have environmental allergens that trigger tics as well, and of course when you get the decorations out they could be covered in dust or possibly even mold, depending, like if they've been in the outbuilding, you don't know what's in there. So it's always just necessary to make sure that there's no allergens around, and make sure that you're comfortable with getting the decorations out. And sometimes it's just necessary, like while they're being dusted off, just leave the room for a bit and just hope that they're all cleaned off. And the change of routine can also be a factor for some people, because a lot of people with Tourette's might tic more around holidays, like school holidays when we're off school, because the routine is different. And I know that was the case for me sometimes. And also I'm autistic as well, so with autism, change of routines can be stressful, so that could also be a factor. And on top of that, there's the sensory stimuli, of course, loud Christmas music and lights. There is a lot of Christmas lights, and some people actually find that they tic more when there's those flashing fairy lights and stuff. They're really lovely lights, but they can sort of trigger a photosensitive response. So sometimes it's just necessary to not have the lights if they bother you, or at least turn the flicker off if that's possible. But yes, I think that with the OCD factor, sometimes it's just necessary to have less decorations, just small things and stuff, because it was virtually impossible at the time to actually cope with all the decorations when I needed everything in the correct place, but I didn't know where the correct place was, and I couldn't really win with that. So sometimes it's just helpful to clear out a bit and only have a few little decorations, and sometimes you do have to play things down, which isn't fun, but it is necessary sometimes, unfortunately, because it's better to have a quality of life than be really excited but then have very severe tics and OCD. Also, sometimes just relaxation can sort of help reduce the impact of the excitement. So Epsom salt baths were actually a really good thing for me. I found that Epsom salt baths would reduce my tics and also relax me so that I could try to sleep. And with Epsom salts it's great as well because they reduce inflammation and detox the body as well as relaxing. So it's a good thing to try if you need to. And I remember I would stay up most of the night doing my rituals, like Tourette Scotland rituals, but that was difficult because I didn't usually get to bed till about 3 a.m, but then it was even more difficult to get to sleep as well because I'd be covered in the premonitory sensations and be ticking and trying to get rid of it. So it was very difficult to sleep as well. Add on to that excitement, it's not a very good mix. And we did try a natural remedy for sleep, but I can't really advise on that because I don't actually know if it worked. A lot of natural treatments are effective. For example, I manage my Tourette through diet, but I don't really know if that worked or not because I could have just eventually fallen asleep due to the exhaustion from ticking so much. So I can't really advise on that that much. But it's always worth a try if you think something might work because you never know until you try it. And also around Christmas, a lot of people have family around or they go to families' houses. And I think it's really important to explain to family members about Tourette's because especially if they're extended family members, they might not see you that much. So it's just important to explain so that they understand that this isn't a behavioural problem, you're not doing it on purpose, all the basics, because I know one of my extended family members for a while didn't really understand Tourette's, and every time I would tick, a coprolalia tick, they would storm out of the room thinking that I'm shouting at them when I'm not, because it's completely involuntary with no intention. So obviously just clearing up what Tourette's really is to people who might not know all the information is really important to ensure that nobody gets upset. And also if you do manage your Tourette's through diet like me, or you have certain dietary triggers, then I think it's just important for family to understand the importance of sticking to it, because even the smallest amount can trigger a severe response. And I know that when I was really young, my nan, she's lovely by the way, but she didn't really understand food dye sensitivity, and I'd eat food dyes which would trigger really horrible rage attacks, anxiety, but it wasn't her fault, obviously she didn't know. But it's just important to tell them, because if it triggers a response, then it's more difficult to manage it once it's started. It's easier to prevent it. But yes, I think these are the tips I would give, but it is very difficult because of course you can't really control how excited you get, and when there's decorations everywhere, there's sensory overload, allergens, it can be very, very difficult. So I just really hope that some of this information has helped, and I just want people to know that it is unfortunately quite normal to experience an increase of symptoms around Christmas. And I just hope that everybody has a wonderful Christmas and a good time, and I hope that you are able to relax and manage any symptoms that may arise. Thank you for watching. Bye!